Does your student struggle academically? Maybe they've developed some bad habits over time. Promoting good academic habits is our topic for discussion on this episode, starting right now. Hey, welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm David Owen. If you hear something helpful in this episode, remember to give us a like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Anyone who's been a student knows that it can be pretty easy to slip into some bad academic habits over time. Here to help us promote good academic habits in your student's life is Cobb's Supervisor of Positive School Culture Support, Kathleen Greb. Kathleen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So I didn't even know that there was a Supervisor of Positive School Culture Support. That's kind of a cool title you've got. I mean, that's no easy task, I would think.
It is. It's very cool. We were really fortunate to have the district support our department. I don't know of any other district that really has such a large department to support a positive school climate and culture. So I have a great team, and we help to make sure students, families, and staff feel safe and welcome and grow.
I don't think people realize that we pay that close attention to that sort of thing. So I'm glad to hear that we've got that position.
Thank you.
We are recording this at a time that is mid-semester, essentially. Mm-hmm. We're getting there. And parents are kind of starting to wonder how things are actually playing out in their students' academic life. What are some warning signs or things that parents need to keep an eye on to determine, hey, I need to keep on top of this a little more for their student?
Parent View, that's a great tool that we have in the county. So definitely be checking that, your students' grades. And then students have a lot of tools in CTLS and the student portion as well. But if you get in a habit as a parent, too, to check that, then you can kind of pick up on things before it becomes too late. Also, maybe if your student used to share a lot more about what's going on in school, maybe now they're more hesitant because they might not know what to do because our students are here to learn and they don't always know how to ask for help. So that might be another sign.
That's a good point. They tend to go quiet when things are not going
Sometimes.
Well. So what are some key components of effective time management for students? We've done podcasts with magnet students, and they're like high achieving students. But time management in general is something that all students can benefit from. What are some pointers that you could offer in that arena?
Absolutely. Time management is good for all of us. And a lot of us have learned from when we were students what we did and did not do. But it's truly having a system and a plan. Okay. So we talk about having a goal, and having a goal is great, but it needs to be a realistic goal. And sometimes our students need help talking through that, whether it be with their teacher or their parent. What does a goal even look like? What is feasible? And then making a plan. So maybe using a calendar, spacing out when you have to do something. Something that I use that's helpful for students as well is I use a time management matrix. So is it urgent, right? And is it also important, right?
Right.
Is it urgent? I think it's urgent, but it's not really important, right? So maybe somebody else can do that. Is it urgent? Is it non-urgent, but is also important? So if something is something I have to do right now, then I want to make sure I dedicate more time to that. If something I have a project at the end of the semester, I think I have all the time in the world.
Right.
Well, it creeps up on you really fast.
So better
planning out your time, right, and breaking up those tasks into smaller pieces and listening to your teachers, because I can bet that most of our teachers are saying, hey, we've got something big due. I suggest chunking it starting here. They say that for a reason, right? Because when you do it, it's more manageable. Yeah. So it avoids that whole cramming and procrastination at the end that, sometimes does happen. But when you have a plan, and not only have a plan, but you practice it. So if you've never used a calendar or an agenda as a student, and you do it one time and it doesn't work, well, habits take time to build. So those routines are really important. When you keep doing them over and over, they become habits, and it's just something that you do every single day.
I think that's something I heard years ago, that it takes, 3 weeks to truly develop something as a habit. If you do it intentionally,
Absolutely.
Every day, about 21 days, it'll kind of click. Well, that's absolutely. I'm sure any parent who has been through this before fondly remembers the night before the project's due. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I got to go to the store and get XYZ, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you said that. So how can students develop a kind of a growth mindset for their academics?
Well, I think it's telling yourself that, which is hard.
Yeah.
That challenges are opportunities, and our students, whether they're 6 or 18, that they're there to learn.
Yeah.
If we knew everything, we wouldn't be in school. We're constantly learning, but looking at challenges as opportunities. And then sometimes when we aren't successful right away, we get down on ourselves. But sometimes that's because we don't create realistic goals. We have this big, huge goal in mind, and when we don't make it there, we kind of fall apart. That's why you set small goals and then celebrate those successes along the way. We, as students, even as adults, we don't do that enough. So small, little successes along the way that require effort. Because effort we can change. We can try and put effort into little things.
That's true.
And that builds our capacity and our growth. And again, it's really, that mindset takes time, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that we're allowed to make mistakes. And then also the power of yet, we talk a lot about with our students. My own kindergarten students had a lesson in Cobb, and they came home, and I can't do it yet.
Yet. That's interesting.
Using that word yet, because it's going to come.
Well, and it's a very positive angle to, as opposed to, I can't do it, it's, I'm still working on getting to that point. That's interesting. That's kind of a psychological trick you can play on yourself, right?
Absolutely. And I need to do it more as well.
Don't we all? So what about those of us who are procrastinators? Or do you want to talk about this later?
We can talk about this now, sure.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Did I mess up?
No, that was fine.
I'm sorry.
That was a dad joke. I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
I don't.
Make sure you
picked
get
up on that because of who I'm married to.
Is he a dad joke
yes.
kind of guy? Okay.
Yes,
Well, that's good to know. Back to the scheduled programming. So, procrastination. How does one overcome procrastination in their student?
Well, it's about habits. Really, everything that we're going to talk about today is about habits and building those. With procrastination, avoiding too many distractions is really important.
Yes.
And we think it's hard, but you got to put the technology away, the phone, because that distracts us and keeps us from doing the thing. So if we schedule time, little pockets of time to get things done and intermix it with things we enjoy, right?
Okay.
Then it helps us not to procrastinate as much. If we look at what we have to do ahead of time, we have a big project like I mentioned before, and we plan it out, that can help. But you can't just say, I'm going to do it. You have to either write it down. Maybe it's something on your computer. Maybe it's something in a calendar. But we have to get those things done little by little.
Okay.
Having a specific place, too, to do your work or study is important. And I would avoid doing it in your bedroom. Because we associate our bedroom, right, with rest and relaxation. And that often makes us procrastinate even more. So we want to associate that with rest, right?
Interesting.
And so I don't have an extra office in my home, but my children can sit at the kitchen table with a chair with a hard back, and they can work on something for 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe 15 minutes. And then they might get up and down and do some wiggles. They're younger, so it's going to look different for them. Or,
Sure.
You're in high school, you set aside 30 minutes to work on something, and then maybe you take a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe you listen to a song.
Give yourself a break.
But something you actually enjoy doing, right?
Yeah.
So that's really important as well to avoid procrastination. And also asking for help. Our
That's so
teachers, our
hard.
staff, they are here to help our students. And they would much rather you come to them early, or even when it's close to something being due, to ask, do they have any suggestions? There's lots of resources, too, within our schools that they can access.
Well, those are all pro tips. I mean, that's awesome. I love the whole mindset of go to your bedroom and do your homework. That's a really good insight there. Talking about getting academics into a good situation with our students, I found with my kids, the sleep routine is something that they have a hard time maintaining consistently. And when they don't get enough sleep, it really is reflected in what happens the next day. Can you tell us more about how important the sleep routine is?
Absolutely. Our cognitive functioning, the ability to remember things, to recall, to be focused, we get that when we have more sleep, right? We've all that fog we experience when we don't get enough sleep, and sometimes it's inevitable, it happens.
Yeah.
We can avoid that when we allow our brain to rest. It's critically important for that sleep. A lot of health organizations say our kids 6 to 12 years old should get at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I'm sorry, 10 to 12 hours of sleep for 6 to 12-year-olds,
Wow.
and 13 to 18-year-olds, 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And what happens a lot of times is when we have distractions in our room or in our bed, this is for students and adults, we aren't able to get into that deep sleep. So we often suggest having, a curfew for our phones. It's hard, but having those away from the room, maybe charging in a particular area of the house, maybe all the family cell phones are charged up.
Yeah.
Because we can commit to that sleep. But if my phone is dinging all night, I'm never able to really get that sleep.
Yeah.
And then also as students, you're less stressed, you're more rested, and then you can blame it on your parents. You can say,
Sorry.
I didn't see that. My mom and dad or my aunt, uncle, my grandpa and grandma, they make me put my phone up at night.
Yeah.
So you kind of get a pass a little bit.
Yeah.
And it will be worth it. And
Yeah.
again, you differentiate. You associate your bed and your room with sleep and rest, and it
Makes
helps you
perfect
with those
sense.
routines and habits.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, for those technical people, shutting off the internet isn't enough. These kids talk, they do their own research, and they find ways around that.
Sure.
So I think that's really a good idea. So kids who are partaking in band or football, baseball, any extracurricular things, any tips on how that can be balanced with the academic side of home life?
Absolutely. There are a lot of busy schedules. We can't get away from that. But trying not to overschedule. Sometimes that's not possible during the week. But making sure those extracurricular activities are also things that we enjoy. Because when you do things that you enjoy, you get those endorphins up,
Yeah.
you're more likely to try to attempt other things like academic tasks.
Yeah.
Also still prioritizing those academics. So a lot of our schools, especially high schools, have study skills opportunities. Maybe before, after practice, they have specific blocks of time where students can utilize that. So definitely taking advantage of that. And again, that schedule is so important. It may be that one night I can get in an hour. Another night, we've got a game, we've got practice,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to have as much time. So if I know that ahead of time, I can use my calendar and my tools to stretch out my studying a little bit. That's why that plan is so important.
Yeah. And one thing I've found with my kids is that a lot of times, for example, band, kid will hang back and have fun just chatting with friends. We want that, but there has to be a limit. Instead of hanging around for an extra 30 minutes, cut that in half or even 10 minutes and come to the car quickly so that you can get home and get the homework done as well. Or even better yet, get the homework done before you go to band. But that's part of that time management thing, right?
That's a great tip. And I think even maybe something as simple as setting an alarm on your phone.
Yeah.
Because it goes off, I got to head out, guys. So that's that reminder, that auditory reminder that, you need to make your way home.
So we've tried to address this from a very positive angle. What are some of the negatives that you've seen? You've had your eyes and ears in students' lives and the cultures, right, around the county. And you've seen some of the bad habits as well. What are some of the things that might be a red flag for parents to identify as potentially a bad habit?
Again, not really sharing what's happening. Now, you have to take that with a grain of salt because sometimes our middle school and high school students don't often share, right? They're learning who they are and things like that.
Right.
But students that typically would share more, now they're going to their room more. Oh, yeah, it's due at some point. They can't really give details around what's going on.
Yeah.
They might not be planning well, and they might need more help. But again, our students, they're learning. They don't always know how to ask for help. They don't always know. When we say set a goal and plan, we have to give them those tools and those visuals, which again, there's a lot of great resources our schools have, and then help them through it and model through that.
Yeah.
But lack of information, also, if we are making a plan as a parent to log into Parent View and look at those grades and look at those messages on CTLS, that will really help us. And also reaching out to your kids' teachers is really helpful, just to check in to see how things are going. Check-in shouldn't be a bad thing, right?
Right. Exactly. A constant connection is always a good idea.
And as a former teacher, I love when my families would reach out, and then it really prompted me to do the same. So that ongoing communication, so then your student can get that acknowledgement when they're doing well, and then it makes it easier to have those tough conversations when they're lagging behind.
Yeah.
Like, I noticed that you were doing really well beginning of the semester, when you were using your calendar, when you were planning out your time. It seemed like when you aren't using those tools, that your assignments are late and you're not able to remember. So we're linking the performance to a tool, not on their ability to not be able to do it. That's also very important.
Right.
With our students too, they can feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, especially if they're walking into high school, they've never been in high school, and so it looks very different.
Yeah.
And so it is more work. And so that balance, they're unable to maintain that balance. Maybe they're moodier. Maybe they're shutting off from their friends where they didn't used to. That having that support person is important for our students as well.
Absolutely. Having the adults be a unified team in support of them and helping them. That's a good idea. Very good.
Absolutely.
So stress. You talked about maybe being a first-year high school student, and stress is just all over that life, right? I mean, that's got to be very stressful. How would you recommend they handle that? I think you kind of touched on that a little bit with extracurricular stuff, right?
Absolutely. Like I said, those habits that we have really help with stress, but also making sure we're finding, even if it's a little bit of time, to doing something that we enjoy. So yes, we have a big project, a big test coming that we know we have to study for. Taking those little breaks and planning those little breaks. So again, maybe it's every 30 minutes, my timer goes off on my phone for 2 minutes. And I'm doing something that I enjoy. That really does help us have those brain breaks to be able to get back to what we need to do.
With the biochemical bonus,
absolutely.
Right?
And realistic goals.
Yeah.
You know, dreams are great, right? What gets in the way sometimes too is overconfidence without a plan. And that leads to stress.
Yes.
So a colleague here was talking about her own daughter, you know, when she's overwhelmed in the morning, and she links it back to, well, I noticed that, you know, when you put your clothes out and you have a plan, you're more relaxed in the morning. So little things like that, how we start our day too, can really impact the rest of our day.
That's a good point.
As parents, we can help model that, you know, and then we can also help model when we make mistakes with our children. I think that they appreciate that. Parents, teachers, because we're human, and we can do some self-talk like, oh, I was really frustrated this morning and we were late getting out the door. But, you know, I didn't put my clothes out and I didn't prep this. So we're saying those things out loud. And our students and our kids are like, oh, wait a minute. I thought they all had it together.
Right.
And so it really helps that comfort level and that stress as well.
If students and parents implement some of these strategies, tips, and great insights, but they still find that they're a long way from getting where they need to be, what resources are available for them to be able to utilize to figure out what they're not doing, or maybe how they could do something better?
Well, I think a great thing for families to do is to look at what they currently have done, right? And so a lot of times I think we grab a new tool, a great resource, we go to a website, and there's lots of great tools on CTLS. I will say start there and start with your school.
Okay.
Start with your teachers, because I guarantee they've already given students maybe some graphic organizer, maybe some tools to get to where they need to be. So I would say start there, but also let's take a look at what we have already done and ask ourselves some questions. Has it worked, right? And then why not? So the answer might be, oh, well, we said we were going to work on that, but we tried it once, and then it fell off because things happen, right?
Right.
So I don't know if we really implemented this strategy,
Yeah, maybe
right?
gave up too soon.
Gave up too soon. So I think we could start small there first.
Okay.
Because sometimes when we keep trying to add more and more and more and more, it then becomes more overwhelming. So have we even used a calendar? Do I know when my student has things coming up that are due? So as a parent, if I know that could be where I start too. If I don't have any idea of what's coming due, let's sit down and have a family meeting. Family meetings are a great way to talk through it too.
Yeah.
Family meetings are something that I encourage. It could be in the car. It could be at the dinner table. It could be out and about. Just talking through what's coming up, making those more regular as we can so that we can talk about things that are going well and, hey, we got to fix this. How can we do it? And you're doing it with your child, not for them or to them, which is really hard to do because we as parents, we as educators are fixers, right? And so often we try to fix a problem, but our students are brilliant. They have lots of skills. And a lot of times they might know the answer if prompted with those questions. So helping them try to come up with those solutions and working with them is really powerful, and it really builds their skills to be successful problem solvers in the future.
Yeah, and you're also building a resiliency. Not every tip is going to work for every student. So being able to show them, hey, that's okay, let's try a different way, is a good way to keep it on the positive, right? Thank you so much for all these tips and insights. They've been incredibly beneficial, at least from me and my family's perspective. I think we could implement some of these as well. If you find these tips helpful, please give us a like and share this podcast with a friend. Remember, not everyone shares their struggles openly, so being bold enough to make this resource known might be something others will appreciate. Thank you for listening to The Inside Scoop, a podcast produced by the Cobb County School District.